If there's someone that's very, very young, might be really religious and like values marriage a lot, and goes into a marriage and has kids when they're like 18, 19, 20, and then a year into the relationship, it gets really, really abusive.
From
Would
who?
you, from both?
This is so rare.
Anyone
so
really.
rare.
If it would happen, what would you recommend for those people to do? Would they divorce, or do you want them to keep going in the relationship?
Keep going.
You can't divorce. I mean, that's not a real thing. You can like separate. See, his Catholic background shines through. You can separate, but you can't actually divorce. That's not a real thing.
Even though it might be like physically abusive?
You got to endure. People are too.
You want to stick into the
People
relationship?
are
as
just.
opposed to-
I mean, look,
people
I'm gonna be
nowadays
honest.
are just pussies. Everybody fucking quits. Everybody gives up. It's too hard. I'm this XYZ. This is why I'm special, so I can fuck up this entire situation based upon me being special.
So I guess in the Catholic religion, what divorce is not it's not a thing, and
It's
so
not an option.
So even if you're in a abusive relationship and you're getting beat up and your spouse is doing all these things, it's still not an option to divorce, from what I'm hearing. So I guess what I would come down to. So what is the option then?
You could separate for a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Well, as long as you need to correct it.
What is
They're
it- what
big on the
if-
counseling.
What if it's forever?
No, it's not an option.
Wait a minute. So wait a minute. You can separate, but as long as you need. But if forever is how long you need, then that's not an option.
I mean,
I
then
don't-
you can't marry again. I mean, you're married. You can't go out with other people. I mean,
So is this a man-made law, or is this a law ordained by?
I think I don't know, but I just know that Catholics set people up for failure because they also. I'm dead serious.
And the reality is, people just haven't learned to fucking endure. There have been hard times in relationship. I'm sure you guys had hard times in relationship. Any relationship has hard times, and it
Okay.
is what it is. You need to push through.
If somebody is physically beating on you, or if somebody's, here's the thing: it doesn't even have to be physical beating. It could also be mental abuse.
I think they're both bad. I think they're both equally as bad. I don't know that one is worse than the other, and it's not the initial sting of either one. It's what it does to you long term in both of them.
I'll tell you what I would do. If my daughter was in a relationship with a guy and she gets married to him and he starts abusing her a
Kill the
year
guy.
into it, I'm gonna be showing up on their doorstep and teaching him some lessons. I wouldn't want my daughter in that situation, quite frankly. And I understand the argument to endure because I have people close to me who grew up in abusive households, and it lasted for periods of time, and it was a phase, and they endured through it, and they ended up raising healthy, successful families to an extent.
So
He gave the example of if somebody was beating on his daughter, he would just show up and straighten them out, pretty much. I mean, is that part of the Catholic religion? Is you showing up to somebody else's doorstep to straighten them out part of the Catholic religion, or are all your things supposed to be sanctioned inside the church as far as your conversations? And let's just say that you do need to straighten somebody out. Should it not be within the church settings versus?
Correct.
And so
It's not only against the Catholic religion, but it's probably whatever he's saying he's going to do is probably against the law as well. And it might not turn out in his favor if he shows up.
And so that does bring up a good thing, is that just because your religion says to work it out, does the law necessarily say that you have to work it out? And so, like I said, if somebody's beating on you, just because your religion says that you need to try to work this out, if the law says something different, if your church is telling you that that's one of the things that you have to work through, and somebody continues to do this to you, but you need to work through it.
You sure you want to be that religion?
Well, you sure you want to be that religion? At the same time, it's like, at what point in time do you say, forget the religion?
It is such an extreme example that I can't give a prescription for what other people should do. There is an element of
How do you guys feel about
value.
third-
Hold on. There is an element of value in what he's saying.
Do you have opinions about third trimester abortion?
It's
Yes.
terrible.
Listen,
It's terrible.
Look at how quickly you can develop it. Do you know how
Terrible.
rare third trimester abortions are? They're also really
Yeah,
fucking
they
rare.
are.
But you immediately had a visceral reaction to that,
Yeah.
right? There are households where parents are abusive to children. Like, that's not like an unfathomable thing. But for you to have that immediate visceral reaction to a type of abortion, that's so incredibly rare. But then when it's like,
we're
well, could you
talking
have-
about like a guy like getting drunk and like beating
have to be
beating his
getting
wife
drunk.
occasionally versus like somebody puncturing a woman's stomach with a needle and injecting euthanasia into the baby's eye socket.
Beating his wife occasionally?
Into the baby's eye socket.
Wow, that's traumatic, actually. You can't even compare the two. Okay. A man getting drunk and beating his wife occasionally.
Occasionally.
That wife looks up to that man and trusts that man.
What's supposed to?
Is supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one person in life that she's supposed to respect and trust and be able to lean on is beating her.
He only beats him when he gets drunk. Occasionally. So that's okay. That's okay from my understanding from the conversation that we had.
That's even worse, I think.
So, but
Because at least if he was not drunk, then he might know what he did the next day and be able to sit down and talk to you about it and tell you what maybe fix it, because he would maybe be able to know what sparked that anger, what started it, and how he could fix it. But when he's drunk,
I guess would you say that things like this are some of the things that turn people off from going to church or being a part of the church? When they hear conversations like this, or when they hear things like this, it's like it almost sounds like a cult to a degree.
Yeah.
It's because, so they're not saying that we condone this, but also not saying that we shun this, because if you're not, because you're saying that this could happen occasionally, but you need to work through it. And I don't think that's okay.
What about if two people get married, they have a kid, and then the wife starts cheating? Do you think they should divorce?
Absolutely.
They should divorce then?
Jesus himself
You don't
said.
think
But it wasn't
Jesus,
illegal.
hold on.
Adultery.
Jesus
And you
himself
could like
said.
work things through, right?
Jesus himself said in cases of adultery, divorce is
So you think that
permissible.
divorce is worse than physical abuse?
For the
Or
children,
cheating, sorry. You think that
Cheating
cheating
is
is worse than
physical
physical
abuse.
abuse?
for the
Sorry.
children, yes.
Absolutely
I think I'm not
Okay,
going to
no,
say this is
divorce-
worse.
divorce is worse for the children.
I already
Is
said.
cheating
I already
worse than
said that
physical
if a
Cheating,
woman's
yeah.
getting abused, yeah, I think she should leave. Like, I mean, if it's a brief temporary thing, like
What if it's mental abuse?
Okay, now
Do you
It's
think
less
if
cut and
it's-
dry.
if it's
You are
cheating and
setting
mental
your
abuse?
Alright.
child up for failure as well if you stay in like these abusive
Look, that's not
marriages.
true.
Yeah.
So it's not okay to divorce if somebody's beating on you or mentally abusive to you, or just abusive to you, just the broad sense. But it's okay for a man to divorce his wife if she's cheating on him. That's all. I mean, is that okay?
apparently,
That doesn't make sense to me. That don't make sense.
the Catholic religion will not ever make sense to you.
But I thought there was no such thing as divorce. Are things changing, or are people making up rules
I
as they
mean,
go?
when you say no such thing, I mean,
Well, not supposed to be.
if you're like, yes,
Practicing,
strong faith.
if you're, I don't know anything about the Catholic faith, and the thing is that the things that I've heard about the Catholic faith, they haven't been the best things I've heard about the Catholic faith. Let's just put it like that.
It feels like we're talking about relationships like they're meant to be enjoyed, and you guys are talking about relationships like they're meant to be endured.
absolutely.
I mean, to an extent,
marriage comes down to, in my opinion, my humble opinion, as a single 28-year-old man, I can't speak from experience, but it's like, I listen to guys like Jordan Peterson, and he makes incredible points in the sense that there is a lot to be enjoyed in marriage, like you guys are describing, but also at the same time, it takes personal sacrifice. It
Yeah.
takes endurance. It takes like sticking through thick and thin and like really sacrificing for the relationship. It's not all. It's not going to be daisies
To
and
a certain
roses
point,
the entire
right?
time.
It's another one of these podcasts where the people are speaking hypothetically about things, and they're not speaking from experience. And the thing is that there's a lot of these people out here, and it seems to be a lot of the young people. Is that I don't think, because I was looking around, I don't think any of these guys have rings on their fingers, which means none of these guys are married. None of these people are married, but they're so quick to give other women and try to tell women how they should act in marriage, and then try to tell men how they should run their marriage.
You
What is
invite
this?
him to a UFC cage and you let somebody punch him around in the face a few times and you ask him to come back the next night. And you do that for a week and you see how many days it is before he decides not to come back anymore.
So,
And that is what the female feels like in a marriage.
look, people are just soaking this information up, and I think young people, especially guys, I think this video has over 1 million views. And who are these millions of people that are watching these? They say that they want to foster healthy relationships, but they're giving toxic information, and they're trying to give information about something they don't even know about. You got to be in something, you got to do something to be able to give quality information about it. And then the information that you're giving about a subject, a lot of times only pertains to your situation. It's a one-off, you know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
every relationship is different. There are some things, some outlines you can take for some relationships, but if you are not in a marriage or never been married and yada yada, how can you speak on it? How can you speak on, if you do get into a fight with your spouse, having to go sleep in the same bed with that person,
Yeah.
or having to, act like everything's okay when you wake up and the kids are around, or you just had a fight and the kids walk in the door and trying to act like everything's okay. So you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of dynamics in that these people just don't understand and don't have, but they'll tell you how you're supposed to be. What I figured out it boils down to is that with the internet, and it's like with anything on the internet, people listen to what they want to hear. They don't listen to what they need to hear. They listen to what they want to hear to reinforce what they believe. And as long as people keep listening to what they do to reinforce what they believe, they're going to continue to promote toxic relationships and honestly just bad outcomes. Because this is not going to work in a marriage. I'm sorry. You're going to have your ups and downs, but if you're telling your daughter to stay in a marriage and continue to get her ass beat, I mean, what kind of parent are you?
There's a hole. Catholics are fast to tell you what you need to do, but they don't tell you how to do it.
Yeah. Well,
There's
he
no
went.
resources.
Well, he went into some other things of talking about counseling and different things. You go to the church and get counseling.
But counseling, I mean, do you really think that the husband that's beating his wife is going to agree to go to counseling where he already knows he did something wrong? Who are you
Really?
telling to go to counseling? The lady that's getting beat?
Who
does she have to go for?
Learn how to block. Learn how to bob and weave.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Resources. I mean, put her in some kind of defense classes or something.
Or it'd be like, what are you doing to trigger him? What do you mean what am I doing to trigger him?